To this Tuesday, July the 16th of 2024 of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission. Somebody like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'll do that.
Nigel.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First up, we have the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, we have an agenda. Next, we have review and approval of the meetings held April 23rd, 2024 and June 18th, 2024. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
I'll make said motion.
I'll second motion.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from the April and June meetings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Next, we have a public hearing for a conditional use permit by Mildred Schoenfield Hoy to allow for a manufactured home in the MXB Mixed Business District at 618 North Bayard Avenue, tax map number 37-1-3, lots 16 and 17, Waynesboro, Virginia.
Good evening. Yes, so this is a conditional use permit request to allow for a manufactured home at 618 North Bayard Avenue. And then just briefly, overview of conditional use permits. They do allow for a case-by-case review of uses which may be but aren't always compatible with the neighboring uses within a neighborhood. The use must be consistent with good zoning practice, no more adverse to health, safety, comfort, or persons living or working in the area than uses that are generally permitted, and then no more detrimental economically or otherwise to property or improvements in the surrounding areas than uses generally permitted. So this particular application is a request to place a manufactured home in the MXB district at 1618 North Bayard Avenue. The parcel is currently vacant, and it's surrounded by mostly single-family residential, though you do have some commercial and more industrial uses to the south and north. Here's a quick look at what the property looks like. You can see an old driveway and some steps right there. This image was taken from Google Maps. And then as far as zoning requirements go, this subject property is zoned for MXB, which is our mixed business district, and it does permit manufactured homes by conditional use permit. Any residential development that occurs in non-residential districts must abide by the RG5, which is our general residential area and dimensional standards. The first of those is that there is a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size requirements, and this particular property does meet those requirements. It's about 6,250 square feet in total. Here, excuse me, here's a quick look at the zoning map. You can tell the area directly to the north and south of the property is zoned for MXB, and the surrounding area is mostly zoned RG5, so our general residential. The zoning ordinance also contains several requirements that manufactured homes have to abide by. The first is specific to manufactured homes. Our ordinance requires that they all be on a full foundation or completely skirted with materials approved by the building official, that they be set up and tied down in accordance with the standards set by the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code regulations, and then also any wheels, axles, tongue, any towing apparatus, transportation lights be removed prior to that final installation of the unit. Those are all requirements that they would have to meet within our zoning ordinance. And then the second part that they would need to meet is required yards, and specifically in this case, the fact that all single-family homes and duplexes, including manufactured homes, must have that primary facade, that primary entry fronting on, in this case, North Bayard Street. Because this is a narrower lot, that likely means that the entrance would be on the narrower side of the unit. As far as the comprehensive plan goes, this is designated mixed use D, which is the area around Commerce Avenue, and our plan states that the corridor is suitable for commercial uses and various housing types. And specifically, in an effort to revitalize that corridor, the plan calls for mixed-use development, and that could include public parks, restaurants, convenience retail, and a variety of housing types. Here's a quick look at the comp plan map. You can tell this is located across the railroad tracks from Commerce Avenue, and it is surrounded mostly by the medium-density residential zoning, although the property directly to the north and south is zoned that mixed-use D, designated that mixed-use D designation in the comp plan. It's true that manufactured homes are an important element of the housing stock. They are more affordable than traditional stick-built homes. The applicant has been made aware of the requirements of the zoning ordinance and has indicated that they're prepared to meet them. Staff was under the impression this would likely be a new manufactured home unit that would be placed on the property, but the applicant did tell us yesterday that they are looking at some used and new units, and they haven't quite made up their mind which way they're planning to go. Staff did ask for some pictures of the units that they were taking a look at, but we had not received them prior to the meeting tonight. So staff is recommending approval. The applicants are here. So hopefully they may have brought some pictures, but you can also ask them questions directly about what types of unit they're looking at for the particular property. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have as well.
I have a question. So I'm looking at the summary sheet, and I see 2 addresses. So am I to understand that the applicant is not going to live on this property?
That could be a question better directed to the applicant as to how they intend to use it.
But there is nothing within our ordinance or the conditions as they stand that would preclude a rental situation. But for the actual intention, the applicant could address that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, having heard from staff, I'm going to open the public hearing for the conditional use permit request as previously summarized. Public hearing is now open. I assume we do not have anybody signed up.
Yeah, the applicant is ready to speak, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the applicant is here and would like to speak, please step forward.
I guess this is not a court. But I can address you guys as formally. Yeah, so my name is Mildred Schwenfelhoy, and I am the applicant, and I can answer any questions you guys have, but if I may, and I really couldn't tell who was the one that made the question as far as, you know, if I would be living in that.
That was me.
Okay, no, it is for rental. And if I may add, I do feel that there is a great need for rental units, especially for lower income. And so my plan is not only to provide that, but also to not just dump a trailer home there, but to make it appealing. I don't know if you guys have been to the area, but it's right, that corner used to have that really old bank that was a shame that it had to be destroyed. I mean, that.
Class.
I know, pretty much. It's, anyway. There is already a trailer home right next to it. I'm assuming that whoever demolished or bought that property is going to build small houses. And I know there's like
It's
3
already
lots or something.
They're already up.
Okay, well, I haven't been there for a while. Not for a while, but I guess that happens pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then next to it is a trailer home. We expect ours to look better, even if it's used. And then next to it, it's actually a property that I already own. It's a smaller house. It looks like a trailer, but it's not. I mean, it's just that,
It's
you
not
know.
gonna sell.
Yes, so this is going to be in conformity with what's already there. Now, I do realize and appreciate that there's like newer houses going on the other side, also in that corner, but there's a new one right on the opposite corner of what the bank used to be. And then I see they're also developing something a little bit farther. So to me, that's awesome. And of course, I want to maintain that level, you know, of whatever, even if it's an older home, because obviously it's gonna be more cost effective for us if we go with the used one. But we plan to completely put new siding on it, and also make the entrance in the front. And I have been looking at other houses that have just changing the entrance to make it look more appealing. So by no means we're going to let it go. And I already have, the property next to it and another property on that same road. So our goal is to maintain certain level.
Both of those properties already have houses
Yes,
on them,
this is the only one that has that lot.
and this lot would be putting a single house on the combination of the two lots, not that you could double down and put one on each, correct?
I'm sorry.
I was generally asking, but directed
Yeah,
here
so I
because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
with the setback requirements, you could only put one unit on the two lots, not,
Just that it would be one
Oh, wait,
family.
hold on. Oh, no, absolutely, because there's two addresses. I think I'm sorry, I should know this because they're mine, but it's, I think, 614 and 618. So I already have a house on one of so that lot actually used to have a house that burned out.
Yeah.
So we already checked with the utilities department, the water, and it's already ready to be hooked up. That's a good question.
yeah, so if you want to go back to the map that is shown there. So the blue outline around the properties, there are two lots there. You can see that there is that kind of orangish yellow colored line that runs in the middle. But based on our ordinance, there would only be the ability to put one unit, one manufactured unit, not one on each lot, but just one with the two, yes.
And that's what I've been, both of those lots are currently vacant lots.
I am,
To calculate the square
you lost me.
So if you look at that blue outline,
Yes,
it is going around two separate tax map parcels. So two lots actually exist there, like the city has recognized as two separate tax map numbers.
Okay.
But the manufactured unit would kind of straddle that parcel line. And so the question was, there would not be the ability to put a unit on each lot. And that is correct, because the ordinance requires 5,000 square feet of lot area, and so you would only have the ability to do one unit.
On both lots.
Right, not one on each.
But there's already a house on one, if I'm reading it correctly, unless that's my misunderstanding then. So the two lots have a separate address, right? Because my understanding was there's that house on one of the lots, and there was already a house. And in fact, the stairs are there, and that house burned down. So there was already a house there. So, yeah, there you go. So there's the house already, and that's the other lot, which is bigger than the lot of the house.
This area right here, which is the property in question, it's technically two lots.
Oh,
Right,
okay,
right.
thank you. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
was
so
like, oh
it
my
is
gosh.
technically two lots, and he was just confirming you couldn't squeeze two in there, and that would not be the case.
It's too bad. If I had known, I would be trying to squeeze two right now. So thank you. I mean, I'm glad to know I have two, but
I'm familiar with that, because I work on the other side of that.
Okay.
And I've worked there going on 20 years, so I know that area.
Very well.
intimately.
Okay.
That's why I was wondering if one lot makes sense, but trying to stick one on each where you have really tight, almost like.
Yeah.
over
And, I mean, the only,
it's not.
and that square footage applies to all, so it would, any type of residential housing, whether it be manufactured or not, would have that same requirement. So they could only ever get one unit across the two lots.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, because I was freaking out thinking, oh, we already have it. But that's awesome to know I have another lot there. Not gonna use it, but, I mean, I will combine it like it's been suggested, so. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else I can.
I have one question. What do you anticipate to get on your rent per month on this? Any idea?
I don't know yet, because it will depend on how many bedrooms. It could be 2, it could be 3, so
Okay,
I haven't really decided that. But I can tell you that I have a list of people waiting for it.
Okay.
It's unreal, the need for rental in Waynesboro,
More affordable housing,
more affordable housing.
yeah.
Yes, and so it really, I've had that lot for a few years, and I've never really done anything with it. I thought maybe I will build a small house, but with the cost of everything so high, and so, but I have so many requests because I do own other properties, and it's unreal the amount of calls and messages I get every day
Yeah.
for people like almost begging me, and it's really hard. So.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have examples of the manufactured home that you'll have that's going on that?
I don't. I am so sorry, but it's not like a double wide or anything like that. It would be just your traditional
Single wide.
single wide. Yes, which I know they have the door on the side, but I already knew that we have to move it to the front, and we'll make like a porch in the front, similar to the other house. So it's gonna look somewhat similar. I mean, not the roof, but we could certainly make the roof look more like that one. Just to make it conform with everything else.
I'm not sure that conformity is an issue in this district.
Probably not.
I think well-maintained and structurally sound is far more important.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So we didn't put a sign-up sheet out, so if you wanted to see if anybody else was here for the public hearing.
Anybody else? Excuse me. Anybody else here for the public hearing on this application?
I mean, I brought a cheering section.
Positive support is always encouraged at the Planning Commission.
So one other thing, did we send letters out to,
Yeah, so it is a requirement, if we hold a public hearing, that we do notify everyone adjacent. So if the applicant does own the adjacent property, but we do notify everybody that touches the boundary of the property and across the street. And then also a sign gets placed on the property that says, zoning action pending. So those are the ways, and then it gets posted in the newspaper also.
so no response? No responses?
We have not heard from anyone.
Directly across the street from this is those apartments in there.
No.
Or is it offset just to the acre?
And then they're building some on the other side of that apartment. There's a car right across the street with no engine in the front yard.
I know whose that is.
Yeah,
So no, we
you
have
can
not
actually
heard
see
from
that
anyone.
on Google Earth, the car with
Yeah, it's still there.
Not very.
Okay. All right,
Right across the
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so if there's nobody here to speak, we are going to close the public hearing on the conditional use permit previously discussed. Public hearing is closed. Any further discussion?
The only other thing I would say as staff that kind of in light of our recent application with a manufactured home that had significant age, if it was the desire of the Planning Commission to put some kind of, time frame on like the age of that unit, that it be no more than 5 or 10 years old, you would have the ability to do that. And while that might not be their intention, it just kind of helps for that to be part of the record and in the conditions. So I just bring that up because we have had requests for older homes recently, and just wanted you to be aware.
I would maybe suggest just what she proffered herself. If she proffered one, she's gonna be using as a rental, so the interior is gonna have to be in good condition or it's gonna be difficult to rent. But she self-proffered that she was planning on updating or at least modernizing the outside so that if it's new siding or, if something's not up to snuff, she's gonna, dress up the outside to where it's not. It doesn't look extremely aged and
What would be a reasonable age?
That's a good question. I don't know if the applicant has looked at units of a specific age that they, of the used units, if they have an idea of that, that might be more helpful. I'm not aware of, specific ages that might be resold.
So, to be honest, I don't really have an age. I know some of them can be older, but I also understand So what's happening right now, and this is why I decided to kind of look into it, and I don't know how familiar you are with the Southwood Trailer Park in Charlottesville. So that's being redeveloped, but, they're using houses, and so all those, the trailer homes, just like what happened in Poplar, if you don't sell your house or don't move it, guess what? It's done. Nobody pays for it. They just destroy it, they take it over. And so I don't agree with that, but that's just the way it happens. And so some of these houses are being sold, and that's what I'm looking at. And there's different ages, but what I'm going for, there's two things. I think Shannon said, it has to be sound structurally. If I end up buying one of those houses, which would be more, better financial sense for me, I would have to move it, and they're not going to move it unless it's structurally sound. So that's my number one. Second, it will have to be, so if they can move it, then we're okay. I guess we won't have to worry about the age. Second, I am planning on, if that was the case, redoing the front, so it wouldn't really look aged at all. And of course, everything else would have to be, painted or whatever would need to be done to it to make it, more livable. And usually my rule of thumb is whatever I rent, I would like to live there too.
So I believe that for consistency purposes, since our understanding of it being a new unit and has maybe changed, that the recent application that we brought to you all for North Commerce had a list of conditions, clarifying that the front had to be replaced to meet the zoning ordinance, certain things about skirting, certain time frame upon which they would have to have the front done. So I could probably get those pulled up for you because it would be good for us to have those specific conditions. But those would be the conditions I would then recommend with this application
I
also.
think that would be an excellent idea.
I think that would be
Adopt
good,
this
just-
Exact same
yeah.
conditions.
Yeah.
Well, I would proffer that we add conditions of the exterior not looking.
As I recall, those conditions included a requirement as to. the
I'm not sure that,
exterior.
I don't think they included amending the front facade. I do not think they included anything about like re-siding, so to speak. So if you had the desire to also include a recommendation that there be some kind of re-siding, it gets difficult in what that means and what materials and kind of all that. But the conditions I remember were that, all the towing apparatus obviously would have to be removed. It would either need to be on a full foundation or completely skirted within, I can't remember if we said 180 days maybe, that the
think it was
front
180.
facade would need to be fixed to have that primary entrance. And I believe we're getting it pulled up now just to make sure.
I have one quick question for the owner.
Okay.
Looking at that picture right there, are you gonna be able to back a trailer up that hill and onto that lot?
I hope so. I do have a concern about that, but the people that do it, I'm sure do it all the time. So,
Because I know some of those trailers in Southwood over there, some of them were brand new, some of them were older when they decided to
do we that?
polish them.
Yeah, I know that the new development looks really, really nice, but some of the requirements they have, a lot of people ended up being basically on the street, which was kind of sad because rent is like up the roof right now, especially in Charlottesville. And they had, their homes and their rent was fairly minimal, but anyway, separate story. But yeah,
Yeah, I was just looking at that, them steps.
I will make sure, we'll tell them.
What was the age of the trailer for the previous application?
The previous application, it was built in 1993. And so I can read off the list of conditions for the other application. So the applicant shall construct a primary entrance on the narrow facade of the proposed manufactured home, and the entrance would be constructed within 180 days after the building permit to place the manufactured home is issued. Building permits would be required for decks, additions, utilities to connect to public water and sewer, and for the placement of the home. The relocation of the building must comply with 429.2.1 of the 2018 or 2021 Virginia Construction Code. The relocated building shall be subject to the 2021 Virginia Property Maintenance Code. Occupancy shall be prohibited if windows are broken, missing, siding is loose, roof is leaking, floor is decaying, etc. All applicable building code requirements must be addressed before a certificate of occupancy will be issued. And then all requirements in the city code be met so that it be on a full foundation or completely skirted with materials approved by the building official, set up and tied down in accordance with the standards of the Uniform Statewide Building Code, and then have any wheels, axles, tongue, towing apparatus, or transporting lights removed prior to final installation. So for consistency's sake, and because we're unsure of the age of the unit, staff would recommend that all those conditions be based on this application if approved.
Thank you. And I guess I'll be getting a copy of that, right? I was trying to read that.
Sure, we would
Possible.
definitely communicate
Right.
those, yes.
Thank you.
It seems that assigning an age is sort of arbitrary because it's all relative to the maintenance of the unit.
Well, maybe the takeaway is that the conditional use permit process, I think for us to arbitrarily say we want to pick an age, I agree, is sort of arbitrary. That's something that I think probably would be better addressed by a zoning text amendment as opposed to making that, sort of applying it to this applicant and not applying it to the next applicant.
And manufactured housing, that term that we use in our zoning ordinance, it does apply to anything after 1976. So the wide range of units that are considered manufactured is quite stark. So that is something to keep in mind.
Very good.
Okay, so do we have further discussion? Then do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit, provided the proffers as identified by staff for the previous cup are in there with the exception of the age. Because like Chairman Corey, to me, it's too arbitrary.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Hearing none, motion carries.
There's one.
Was there one opposed?
Nay. I'm opposed only to the age. I think there should be some type of requirement on age. I'm fine with everything else, but I'm not fine with not having some instruction to the age.
So he made the motion with the previous conditions.
Yes, so the motion that was made was that the conditional use permit be approved with the conditions attendant to the prior conditional use permit for manufactured home that was previously before us at the last meeting.
And there was no age condition on
There
that.
was,
So I thought so I misunderstood.
He said
the
without the age.
But the age wasn't on the first one. He said
Yep.
with exception of
Of
the age, and I
Yeah,
thought,
that's,
And I'm like, Will,
that
I
wasn't
think
on
that
the
needs to
first.
be addressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
so I understood the exception to be with the age.
there,
I think there might have been a confusion in the wording.
I think there was some
Was
misspoke.
used. I think the way that he worded the motion implied that there might have been age
Yeah,
on the
because-
prior application, but there is no age, and I think the intent was that there
There
would be
is no
no age.
age.
Right. So there might
Yeah,
have
I mean, I guess one way that it could be done, if that would have affected your change of vote, then we could see if there is a vote to rescind, or if someone wants to make a motion to rescind the vote, but if not, I would think that the majority carries.
Motion carries.
Motion.
All right, so what we have right now is
So I think you have I think it has been approved.
Yeah.
But if someone wanted to make a motion to rescind the vote, and that receives support.
6-1 vote to approve is what we currently have. So in the for the CUP with the prior conditions, except the age requirement.
Because there was.
The age, there was no age.
So I would like.
So hang on. So the motion that was made did not contain an age requirement. Am I correct about that? Okay. So, Mr. Sloat, do you have a motion?
I moved it to rescind the vote and recall the vote
All
on
right.
the previous motion.
Do we have a second?
Before a second, is there a way that we can have conversation based on like how we plan on going about this further for other applications?
So I think before we can talk about this any further, we need to get the vote rescinded and get it back before the commission. Because right now we have the matter is settled. I think that's something that, and then I think we need to have a clear motion and a vote on a clear motion. And then we can talk about policy moving forward, if that's okay. All right, so where we are is we need a second on the motion to rescind.
I'll second it.
All right, we have before us a motion to rescind our vote approving the conditional use permit that we've been talking about in this case. All in favor of that motion to rescind? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we have a 5-2 vote to rescind. So majority carries, we vote to rescind the conditional use permit that was previously voted on by the majority. Now, do we have,
I'm happy to make the motion, and if someone would like
I
to.
think that would be a great idea.
Okay. So, and I'm taking this off of what the original motion was. So the motion would be to approve the conditional use permit with the following conditions. The applicant shall construct a primary entrance on the narrow facade of the proposed manufactured home that fronts on the street. Such entrance shall be constructed within 180 days after the building permit to place the manufactured home is issued. Number 2, building permits are required for decks, additions, utilities, and for the placement of the home. Number 3, relocation of building shall comply with 429.2.1 of the 2018 or 2021 Virginia Construction Code. Number 4, the relocated building shall be subject to the 2021 Virginia Property Maintenance Code. Occupancy shall be prohibited if windows are broken, missing, siding is loose, roof is leaking, floor is decaying, etc. Number 5, all applicable building code requirements must be addressed before a certificate of occupancy will be issued. Number 6, all requirements in City Code, Section 98-4.2.7 shall be met. Those requirements state that a manufactured home, A, be on a full foundation or completely skirted with materials approved by the building official. B, be set up and tied down in accordance with the standards set by Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code regulations. And C, have its wheels, axles, tongue, towing apparatus, and transporting lights, if any, removed prior to final installation of the unit.
Okay. Do we have
I'll second.
well, staff can't make the motion,
Yeah, I
but
was
you
just
can
reading.
adopt her recommendations and make a motion to,
I'll make the motion to approve the conditional use permit adopting the proffers just read by staff.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any further discussion?
I just wanted to bring back to.
I think this is a great time to bring that point back up. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So, to your point with consistency in our decision-making, if we were to include age as a further proffer, how would we go about that to make more consistency in that decision?
So some of the ways that I would think we should go about it, because I can't just, it would be wrong of me to just come up with an age. I think it would be reaching out to kind of the industry and the industry standard, reaching out to like Virginia Housing and some data that exists around manufactured homes. Certainly how they're maintained can drastically change. So it could be a little arbitrary, but we would want to present some data to you all for your understanding of, what maybe makes sense. And then once we presented that to you all, we could look at a potential, work with legal counsel and see if there was some potential zoning text amendment that identified that in order to accept a conditional use permit application for a manufactured home, the home needs to be at least constructed at this year or after, would be a possibility. I'd have to do some research to see if that's done in other localities, and certainly talk with legal counsel, but that's where I would envision starting.
So in comparison to what's already been established, and I think the age range that you gave was from the state?
So yeah, what is called a manufactured house, and and meets the ordinance in our definition, where you can apply for a conditional use permit for it, is anything after 1976, which means it has a HUD label on it. Anything prior to that is often called a trailer or a mobile home, but anything 1976 and after is a manufactured home.
So would staff agree that it would be inconclusive to add that condition currently without having the recommended data?
I just don't know what year I would come up with, if it's anything 10, like I said, it's I guess based on how homes are maintained also. I'm sure you could find, a manufactured home that was over 10 years old that was in a lot worse condition than in another. So I guess I just don't have enough information to feel like I can provide, a knowledgeable opinion on it.
So can this be tabled until that's provided?
You certainly can table the request.
Boy, I have some strong feelings about that.
Well, my question is, we've already approved a cup permit for a manufactured home previously. There was no age limit requirement on it. So why now are we imposing that on this woman who wants to improve this lot, add housing, which everybody wants? I don't see the reason, because we haven't set one, that she should suffer the penalty. We've
I
already
agree.
approved one before without it. This is the same request, different owner, different lot, but basically the same request that we approved last time.
So I think you make some good points. I will also just clarify that conditional use permits are a very case-by-case basis. So that might not apply in the kind of the argument you're giving, because certainly an age of a home, how does that vary across specific properties? But I will say that a conditional use permit, you do have quite a bit of latitude in defining whether the very specific situation and scenario fits within the neighborhood. So kind of the argument of precedent setting is not is not really there in some instances. In that previous case, we had a very specific unit that was in mind and was requested to be relocated. In this instance, we don't have that. So I just point that out, that it is a very case-by-case basis based on, kind of the specific location of the property.
And I understand that, but in the, I don't want to say this, in the avenue of consistency, why saddle this property owner with that proffer? I see nothing in her request that differs that much, other than, yes, the previous one had a specific unit, a specific manufacture date in it that would justify it.
I think the fact that it's a CUP and to Leslie's point, each one is different.
Yeah, I understand that.
But this can be something that's going to be a going trend.
But you can't call it,
And
not
so-
call it a precedent before and call it a precedent now.
Let me finish, please, let me finish. I think that we need to do our due diligence and understand if this is going to be a recurring request in the future. At least we have some information that we can use and have at our disposal.
Yes, I agree with that, and like Will stated before, we can deal with that in a text amendment.
Let me ask staff this question, if I may, and let's see if maybe this clears things up a little. So this this property is going to be subject to the Uniform Building Code for construction, correct? So
For any additions that are put on it, yes.
and the so if there was going to be a new roof or a new porch put on it, it would have to meet the same building code requirements as any new construction unit in the city, correct?
Those elements would. I don't know if, the building official would then somehow need to go in and inspect other parts of the unit. But yes, if the roof was replaced or decks were added, the permits would need to be pulled for those. And like the entrance facade, the front entrance permits would need to be pulled for that.
And the same thing with the building maintenance code, correct?
Right, so property maintenance would apply.
So there is no way that this unit, that a certificate of occupancy for this unit could be issued unless it met or exceeded the basic requirements that we have for, by law, for every other housing unit in the city. Is that fair to say?
So, I'm not an expert in property maintenance, but it doesn't go maybe as far as some people like sometimes, but it does, yes, have a
But-
consistent evaluation of, is the grass too tall? Is there trash? Are there broken windows? Holes in siding or roofs? Yes, all that would be included.
But it's gonna have to meet the same burden or the same threshold. There's no way for it to avoid. And in fact, we probably have a better avenue to encourage enforcement because we can hold the occupancy permit back as opposed to taking enforcement action. So unlike building maintenance code where we try to find people or work with them or whatever, in this case, no occupancy permit will issue for this unit unless or until they have met the minimum standards set by code for every other building in the city, correct? All right.
And in all fairness, for consistency purposes, the previous applicant was a request to place for their habitation, not to set up for a rental. And personally, the average age that I could find of a trailer lifespan is between 30 and 50 years. So if you're looking at a trailer that was built in the 80s or 90s, you're looking at a trailer that's at the end of its life or through its life, and being able to survive the trip doesn't necessarily mean, and that's, in my opinion, when I broke it down and looked at it, when you go to look for a used car, there's a difference between looking at a 1970 car that's a restoration project versus looking at a grocery getter to get to and from work. So that's my reservation on it, with it being open-ended, as opposed to what we were initially assuming, that was going to be a new or lightly used trailer versus potentially something from the early 90s or late 80s.
As somebody that's been in the construction industry about almost 40 years, the age of the trailer, if it's being remodeled and refurbished, it must meet today's current standards to get a certificate of occupancy. The age is irrelevant. I have remodeled trailers that are at the end of their life cycle, that probably should have been burned down as practice for the fire department, but we went in there, remodeled them, and they look better than the new ones you could have pulled off a lot. So,
And so I guess to that point, we wouldn't require remodeling of the unit. So we could require it meets property maintenance standards, and we can require that, the primary facade be constructed to face the front. But we could not require, unless that there be any kind of renovation of the unit.
no, we could, but there are certain standards for certificate of occupancy that must be met, which will dictate some of that. You won't pull it, you can't get a certificate of occupancy in a house that's got knob and tube and wire in it today. I don't know if anybody knows what knob and tube and wire is, but it is not very safe. So, I mean, everything in my mind will be brought up to code. And saddling this requester with the restraint of telling them you can't pick a manufactured home that's more than 10, 15 years old, to me just doesn't sit well.
Well, as it is, the motion on the floor doesn't include that.
Yeah.
So the motion's been put forward,
Yeah.
it doesn't include that.
Yeah.
All right, do we need to have any further discussion on this, on the motion currently before the commission?
My thought on this, since a conditional use permit has to be, each case has to stand on its own merit. I feel like this applicant here is a perfect example of somebody that she's already talking about either brand new or late model. I don't think we have to worry about her bringing in anything or looking at anything 15 or 30 years old. So in this particular case, I feel like we're fine. Now, there will be cases down the road where maybe an age we should have something for down the road, for cases that we have people apply that we're not too sure how they're gonna do. But like on this case we talked about last time, I drove by and looked at that lot again. I have no problem with that. I mean, I'm concerned about that particular home making it across the mountain, being that old. That's a long trip. But I have more concern about the house next to it that they're getting ready to place, that's already existing there. If you all have looked at that house, I mean, that's a mess there, but that's I guess a housekeeping thing. But anyway, I think in this case, we don't have anything to worry about as far as addressing an age anyway.
Just forward thinking, how fast would staff be able to provide the data needed to have that type of condition in there for future cases?
So what I would probably do, like I said, is just kind of bring some data. If I go back and look and try and do some digging and reach out to some people within the field, and it's determined that, hey, the age really has no bearing potentially, depending on upkeep, and, then I would bring that back to you all. But so yeah, maybe some options that we could bring back at your next meeting to at least give you some feedback on what we found.
As a middle ground, would it make sense to table?
The challenge I have with either tabling or adding the age requirement in this case is, I understand this is a conditional use permit, but we owe it to applicants to sort of fairly put them on notice as to what our expectations are. And we also owe it to the residents of the city to make sure that we don't let any old thing happen. And my concern as we strive to balance those two considerations, my concern with the possibility of both tabling and I have this concern a little bit less with simply if we just want to pick a date and add an age requirement. My concern with tabling it specifically is, we don't necessarily work as fast as the applicant might like. And I have concerns about if we want to have a public hearing on a zoning text amendment recommendation to city council. It's then got to go to city council. That means it's going to be at least probably 3 months. City council, I don't believe, has any meetings in August, or only has one meeting in August. So, we may be talking September or possibly October before Ms. Hoy gets her permit. And that's so the potential for tabling it, I have concerns about how fair that is to her in terms of, this is a business for her. And while we all might have feelings about landlords and the state of rental property in the city, I think we sort of owe it to her to make a decision on her application, which is not to say that the zoning, I totally agree with you guys, by the way. I think the zoning text probably needs to be amended to address this issue potentially down the road, but that's not what the zoning text says right now. And so I don't know that it's necessarily fair to her to hold her to that standard at this point when we don't yet have that on the books. So just my observations as to where we are, for whatever they are worth. So I think that where that leaves us is we have a motion with the prior conditions, but without an age requirement on the table. Do we need to continue to have further discussion on that, or are we ready to vote?
I assume we're ready to vote at that point.
Ready to vote?
All right. And just because I want to make sure everybody is totally clear on this, I was going to ask staff if we can do a roll, if I can say it, if we can do a roll call vote, please, on this, on the motion currently on the floor.
Sure. So Mr. Gibson?
Aye.
Mr. Klon,
Aye.
Ms. Boyle,
Aye.
Mr. Flory,
Aye.
Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Lee,
Nay.
Mr. Sloat.
Nay.
Okay, so
All right.
the motion carries 5-2. And it will move to city council at their meeting in August.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you for your patience while we got our ducks in a row. I appreciate it.
Very informative. Thank you.
All right, next we have review of minor subdivisions and final subdivision plats approved since the June 18th, 2024 meeting. I do not have any of those for you. Excellent. Next we have public comment period for items not on the agenda. I see some smiling faces in the crowd that we've now put through some procedural stuff. Are you folks here to provide public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, having heard no one called for public comment for items not on the agenda, we have matters from staff.
I do not have anything this evening, no.
Come and see my new building. Come and see my new building. We are now the proud owners of the old Erie Insurance Building on Pelham, so come and see it. We're not in there yet, but it's a
Excellent.
beautiful building.
Do we have any other commissioners?
I'd just like to extend a thanks to the Parks and Rec Department for the fireworks display Saturday night. It was awesome. I just wish they'd shoot them a little bit higher. I could see all of them from my house, but, very, very wonderful event. I still think we should close Main Street, let the restaurants put their tables down there so people can eat and watch it, but
You have to get a hot dog from Sam's and you don't need a table.
They're closed in dark.
Now, piggyback on that, the music was great. Like, it was a great atmosphere down there.
All right, anybody else have anything else? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to, excuse me, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Is my last meeting next month or September?